The Providence City Council is directing people with any information related to Saturday's shooting at Brown University to share it with the FBI. That includes any tips, videos, or photos as authorities continue their investigation, and tips can be sent to fbi.gov/Brown University shooting. Meanwhile, 4 people accused of plotting New Year's Eve bombings have been arrested. And President Trump condemns the shootings at Brown University and in Sydney, Australia as well, and an ISIS attack in Syria. To give us analysis from a law enforcement perspective is Greg Shaffer, retired FBI special agent, elite hostage rescue team. He's the principal and COO of the Active Shooter Prevention Project. Greg, good afternoon to you. You know, we always talk about how to stop tragedies from happening in the first place. Do you think the 4 that were arrested, do you think this is an example of law enforcement, just doing their job and preventing an attack before it even takes place?
No, absolutely, Don. This is, this is what you want from the FBI is, getting, ahead of the bang, getting left of bang and preventing these kind of acts from happening. Although the organization doesn't seem to be very sophisticated, the fact that they use social media to communicate with one another dictates that. The fact that they were using pipe bombs, although very deadly, pipe bombs again are not the most sophisticated IED that that's out there today. So I'm sure the FBI saw some of these social media posts. This organization got on the radar of the FBI. The FBI then conducted their investigation. They maybe even inserted some confidential informants, or undercover agents to help move the case forward. Again, that remains to be seen. But this is the exact way you want the FBI to conduct investigations: is get in front of it and prevent these things from happening before injuries occur.
Talking about this extremist group's social media, its account, posted things like freeing the world from American imperialism is the only way to a safe and peaceful future. So I'm just wondering, how effective are the tools right now for law enforcement that they have at their disposal to identify radicalized individuals that are planning attacks?
Well, we always, the FBI always tries to stay ahead of the power curve when it comes to technology. A lot of times the law enforcement is chasing, the tails of the offenders. They come up with innovative ways to conduct their crimes and plan their criminal activity. So the FBI sometimes falls behind that technology curve. But I think in this instance, the FBI did a great job again in looking at the social media postings and following up with that, through the advances of technology that just come into play with the FBI literally in the last decade. This is all new technology, the tracking of cell phones to this extent, the way they were able to identify the location of the individuals releasing the Brown shooting, for example, and just getting into the social media platforms and working alongside those technology firms and helping them assist the FBI in identifying who's out there putting these threats out over the internet.
And I did want to get your comments on the Brown University shooting as well. President Trump, First Lady, expressed sympathies to the victims and families of the attack in the university, and as well in Bondi Beach in Australia, and the ISIS attack in Syria as well. But let me focus just a little bit on the Brown University attack right now. The suspect, still remains at large. I'm just wondering, is there anything to be said, or is there anything that stands out to you about this attack? The alleged shooter being able to enter a classroom, right, fire more than 40 rounds, and then escaping all before the police even arrived.
Well, it does reiterate the fact that these active shooter events can happen anytime and anywhere on a small campus like Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. So that's one thing that sticks out, is that, again, it can happen anywhere. 40 rounds is a lot of rounds. That's a lot of empty shell casings lying on the floor. I'm sure the FBI has collected all those, and shell casings in and of themselves can provide a lot of intelligence and information and evidence to lead us to maybe who was responsible for this. Again, arresting somebody who was a person of interest and releasing them, again, reiterates the fact that, these scenes are very chaotic and a lot of things are happening all at one time. So for the police to, go to a hotel 20 some odd miles away based on the information they had at the time and then detain somebody and then question him, then release them, it's not unheard of. You look back to the 1996 Atlanta Olympic bombing, and the same thing happened there with an individual who was detained by police for a while. So again, these crime scenes are very chaotic, especially in the first hours. What is discouraging is the fact that there's so few cameras on that college campus that were able to capture, photos or videos of this individual. The one video that has been released has a grainy, person walking down the sidewalk, dressed in black. Personally, he could be fleeing the scene because he heard the gunfire. Who knows? But that video does not give a lot of confidence to me that might be the person they're looking for. It's too innocuous at this time.
So in addition to that video, what do you think investigators are likely doing right now to narrow down the shooter's identity, given that the initial person of interest was released?
Yeah, they're collecting cell phones from anybody in the area, looking to see if anybody has videos that may have captured something. They're collecting, of course, traffic cameras and any cameras on the front doorstep of a Ring camera of a residence nearby, or a business that might have some surveillance cameras by their front door. So they're collecting a lot of data, a lot of videos. They're looking at who was in the area based on cell phone pings and see if they can get a name, identify what somebody may have, said something in the past about creating some kind of violent act at Brown University. So, they're talking to everybody. They're collecting as many cell phones and videos as they can, and to come up with, something to move forward on. So right now, they got very little to go on other than that one grainy video you're showing right now of an individual walking away in black attire.
And Greg, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let me just get a couple more comments from you on the Syria attack, and then we'll end with the Australia attack. So U.S. soldiers and a civilian interpreter were killed by an apparent ISIS gunman. Can you speak to how active ISIS is in Syria right now?
Well, full transparency, I don't do a lot of international terrorism work anymore. I do know that the incident in Syria was the first fatality of U.S. forces since the Assad regime was overthrown, 9 or 10 months ago. ISIS is in play in Syria. I'm really hesitant to comment too much on how active they are. Because I've been focusing more on the domestic side of the house when it comes to violence and domestic threats.
Fair enough. We'll just end with this. For the shooting in Australia, as you're well aware, a bystander tackled and disarmed one of the gunmen, right? He's being praised as a hero and credited for saving lives. Talk to us about the importance of acknowledging acts of heroism from people like this, like Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who was also shot, by the way.
No, I mean, you got to respect an individual that put his life at risk for those that he doesn't even know. I mean, tip my hat to him. We should definitely, recognize this individual as a hero. Undoubtedly, he did save lives. He disarmed the shooter from a shotgun, which is just, a very, very nice weapon to use if you want to create a lot of critical incidents and a lot of bloodshed. So that individual should definitely be hailed as a hero. Something like the individual in our subway who choked out the individual, ultimately died in trying to save the people on our subway in New York. He was not hailed a hero. Instead, he was indicted and had to stand trial. But I think in instances like this, we should all stand up and applaud the individual who has the courage to do that. He didn't know the people who are being shot. He just knew that violence was occurring, and he felt obligated, as he said in his own words, to act like any human being should act.
And what makes me respect him even more, this Australian bystander, is that he was in a hospital, he was shot, and he said to the media that he would do it all over again. Very inspiring. So, Greg, that's all for today. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.